former OMB director, president of the Center for Renewing America. And if that weren't good enough, we have Steve Miller, former Trump senior policy advisor and Trump campaign surrogate there. I got a smile, or a small one, out of Steve Miller. Steve Miller, you were accompanying President Trump today, although you didn't show up at the business roundtable to see the extraordinary Kudlow interview, but I think you were with Trump in some of the other stops. Trump comes back to Capitol Hill. Steve Miller, what was your impression? What was your takeaway?
Yes, Larry. Well, I had an incredible time today attending some of the events that was just described. There was incredible unity, incredible good feeling among House members, among senators, tremendous support for this candidate, for the presidential Republican nominee to achieve victory in November, because as President Trump said, we must be unified across the board. He laid out his immigration vision. He laid out his border vision. He laid out his economic vision, how to tackle inflation, how to tackle the debt, how to get energy prices back down and energy security back up, how to seal the border shut, stop illegal immigration, and also talked about how to end these wars all over the globe that are ravaging so many nations and that are putting American security in grave peril. So all of that and more was discussed. A truly incredible day, a wonderful day for the Republican Party and for America.
All right, there you have it. Good wrap up. Russ, Vought, I know you're going to agree, or basically agree. Is immigration now the hottest issue in the country, in your judgment, the open border?
Absolutely. You go around the country and it's immigration, it's the border, the invasion, and it's inflation. I think those two issues, beyond anything, are the things that are resonating with the country right now.
What should we do about that invasion, as you put it?
Well, look, the president taking office on day one has all manner of policies that he's already executed to be able to turn off the spigot and send the flow back across the border. I mean, Stephen Miller, as part of his team, these guys perfected those policies. It's instantaneous. And then you have things that we need Congress to give us the money to be able to do, increase and build more wall. But these are things, in starting the largest deportation in history that the president is running on. So these are things that he's taken to the case of the American people. He will be ready on day one, and the country will be ready for it.
You're going to be, I saw, congratulations, you're going to be the policy director for the Republican National Committee, Platform Committee, if I have that right?
Yep.
Okay, good. What will you recommend on this? Let's talk about issue number one, which is the immigration, the open border, the invasion, as you put it. Now, I know President Trump wants the wall. He wants to remain in Mexico. Perhaps something like a restoration of Title 42 might be put into that as well, and so forth. What about the deportation side? I'm seeing polls that show the public favors deportation. What kind of presidential authority does he have? He
has the authority to deport individuals. I mean, if you're here illegally, you go through a process, but we have ways to expedite that process. And unfortunately, under the Biden administration, ICE has been used to basically just funnel people across the country into communities from the border. They've made every state, they've made every community essentially a border state. And ICE has the ability, with proper leadership from the Oval Office, to overturn that. And I think that's what you'll see. And then it's putting in place the things that Stephen and others really created to serve the president in the last term.
Steve Miller, can I just ask you, is there some way you guys can get your arms around the federal bureaucracy, which never agrees with a Republican president and certainly disagrees with Mr. Trump? At least that's the track record. Those guys are tenured. They're worse than tenured Harvard faculty members. Is there something in the early stages that can combat this crazy bureaucracy that's going to try to oppose Trump at every turn?
Well, you're right, of course, Larry, that the permanent Washington bureaucracy, the lifetime tenured bureaucracy, undermines in a very significant way the operation of American democracy, where you elect a leader, you elect Donald Trump, and then you have lifetime tenured officials at the CIA, at the FBI, at the Department of Homeland Security and elsewhere in the government, Department of State, who have their own agenda. This is, again, another way that the left and the Democrats are trying to subvert democracy. But President Trump is committed to, and this is a major theme of his campaign, to restoring full American democracy. And what that means is that you have to have appointees inside of all of these agencies, from the agency head to the chiefs of staff on down to the public affairs officers, who are committed to executing the lawful agenda of the democratically elected president of the United States. And if you have instances and you have cases where federal bureaucrats are engaging in behavior that is not lawful, that is not consistent with a proper understanding of the Constitution, then by definition, of course, those individuals are going to have to be reassigned. They're going to have to be removed. That is a core component of having true democracy in America, where the will of the voters is respected. So you look at the issues we went through today, Larry, whether it's a secure border, whether it's low inflation, whether it's low energy prices, whether it's safety on our streets, whether it's a foreign policy that puts America first, all of these issues are what voters want, not just by a slim margin, but 70% of voters, 80% of voters want these reforms. They want these changes in government, and Donald Trump will not let a bureaucracy stop him from implementing that popular agenda Americans want.
Well, I know. I've seen the polling numbers. It's really quite remarkable. They're all 70, 80% type issues. You have to wonder how goofy the Democrats are to oppose them all. But, Russ, you know, here at the Business Roundtable meeting today, this issue came up. You've got this sort of rogue Federal Trade Commission, rogue Federal Communications Commission, rogue antitrust in the Justice Department division. All they do is sue business. It's the most anti-business operation I've ever seen. Now, they are independent agencies, but they're not independent of the earth and the planet. I mean, as the administration comes in, it's insanity. And by the way, the one I'm thinking of the most is this Lina Khan, whatever. She loses every court case, but she causes the businesses to pay millions and millions of dollars of legal fees and maybe stops out business. I mean, can you do something about that?
You can, and he's running on it right now. I mean, the whole notion of independent agencies is anathema for the standpoint of the Constitution. The Founding Fathers would never recognize these independent agencies. It's part of the fourth branch that Stephen talks about. And one of the president's proposals is to make sure, to the extent that these agencies are doing rulemaking, to come into the White House, not unlike anything else that you would see from the Department of Commerce or the EPA, to make sure it's going from a cost-benefit analysis, to make sure that other agencies get a chance to have an opinion on what they're doing. Ultimately, the president should have an opinion that's coming from the Oval Office. This was something that we discussed, and he is now running on. We discussed in the last administration. He has a great campaign agenda piece on that, and it's something that he's promised the American people that he would do.
It's totally anti-growth, anti-business, anti-prosperity, anti-jobs, anti-worker, whatever they say. It's these, Newt calls them big government socialists. I think Newt is right. Crazy stuff. A lawsuit, and all she does is lose them, and it doesn't seem to impact her. I don't get it. Russell Vought, Steve Miller, old friends. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you, Larry.
Folks, yeah, anytime.